Hello, guys, this is Faryana, and today I'm going to talk about the top 5 books I have read this year so far. And trust me, I'm really excited to talk about it. And all the books I'm going to talk about, they will also be put in the timestamps below so that you are getting the exact content that you want from this video. And let's dive into it. The first book we are going to talk about is Comfort Me with Apples by Catherine Valenti. So, the genre of this novel is written on Goodreads as horror, fantasy, fiction, novella, thriller, and I found this book doing justice to those genres mentioned on Goodreads. I mean, it's perfect. And that's why it has to be one of my top reads of this year so far. And yeah, let's dive into it. I will read the small description that you are given in the beginning of the book, and I hope you enjoy. So, Sophia was made for him, her perfect husband. She can feel it in her bones. He is perfect. Their home together in Arcadia Gardens is perfect. Everything is perfect. There is more, but I just wanted to set the premise for us to discuss this book. And as you can hear in the description, that everything is perfect. There is nothing wrong with anyone or anything. And this is exactly where the readers start to question everything that, okay, you were saying everything is perfect, but do I agree? We'll see. In this book, Sophia and her husband moves to this place called Arcadia Gardens, and they have some solid, strict rules for the people who are living in that area. And before every chapter, they have the rules written and reminded. So that was very interesting for me when I started reading it, that every chapter had a description. So Sophia's husband is away from home quite a lot, and she is contently happy at home doing her household chores. So basically, this book actually reminds me of Trad Wife. I'm pretty sure we have heard about this from TikTok, and we have seen a lot of videos of this trend going on of Trad Wife, but it is not a trend in a lot of different parts of the world. For example, from the place I come from, being a housewife is normal. Like my mom was a housewife, my grandmother was a housewife, and yeah, it is what it is. So in this book, they highlight how the housewives are perfect. They are just very happy with the way they are making this utopian world for their husbands, and everything they do is for the satisfaction of their husbands. Starting from cooking, cleaning, tidying, gardening, etc., etc., right? And the wives are not supposed to question anything. So while I was reading this book, it just kept reminding me of my mother. Of course, my mother is not in a creepy situation as Sophia, but yeah. So as Sophia goes deeper into the house that she just moved in, she finds small, creepy clues that was building up a lot of question in her that she couldn't ask her husband for clarification because questioning the husband was a sin. You don't question. However, as the story advances, you'll see that Sophia gets over her fear and she starts asking the questions. And then, of course, there's an argument between the husband and wife, and everything is disclosed in the end. But I will not say anything more. I think this is enough for you to build up the interest to read this book, right? So I rated this book as a solid 5 star. It has 103 pages, but it hooked me up. I stayed till the end. I read it in a single sitting, in a single day. And when the story was over, I I fell in love with it, and it's no joke. Such a beautiful piece of writing by Miss Valenti, and I will be looking forward to reading more from her in the future. And the rules that we saw in every chapter to live in Arcadia Gardens was a highlight for me, because if anyone gave me that kind of creepy set of rules to live in a single place, I would be very skeptic, and I probably will not go and live there, no matter how nice it is and how nice the rent is and blah, blah, blah. The author did a splendid job to uncover the truth, like how it folds so smoothly will really impress you. For example, how everything started from a picture perfect scenario to slowly towards a painful end for Sophia is something you will sympathize with as a reader. And it was not a hard job to do. And the vanity and ignorance of the husband, you will see it in the conversations that that is something that will really make you feel bad for Sophia, who has been trying to create the ultimate utopia for her husband at home. Like, her life did not have any other purpose. So it will make you think about all the traditional values that women have had for centuries, and how, as a modern woman, you see it or you reflect on it is something I found very impressive, because this book made me think. It was not just a thriller, it was not just a happy ride, but it also made me think about the traditional gender roles that has been played before, that is being played now, and that will be played in future. So yeah, this is one of the 5 books that I found very, very lovable, and just wanted to share it with you. Now we're talking about the second book, that is Brat by Gabrielle Smith. And this book is Gabrielle Smith's first book. And it was awesome. If you are a fan of body horror, then you are going to love this book, no doubt. I don't have the book with me because I borrowed it from the library, so I will just put it here. So, this book on Goodreads is listed as contemporary body horror fiction. All right, so what's happening in the book is that we have the central character, who is also named Gabriel, and his skin is falling off. His skin is peeling off, decaying, and the explanation was gory and uh, disgusting. But I understand that was the whole purpose of establishing a body horror atmosphere, right? So, as much as a body that is decaying, but it is also alive, living, breathing, doing everyday chores, is a very disturbing picture in front of us as the readers. For me, actually, it was the house and the eerie and unnerving atmosphere inside the house that stood out as the main horror element of this book. And it almost felt like the house and the protagonist, they were not different entities. They were together, decaying. They were just slowly melting into the earth, disappearing together. So that part was quite unnerving, and I really enjoyed it actually. But I really like this book not for its horror elements, but also how Gabriel Smith showed the relationships between the family members, and how the death of the protagonist's father was being dealt with by different family members, and how they deal with each other while they are grieving. So that was another highlight for this book. And the next part that stood out to me was the very, very dry tone of the book. When you are reading it, you can feel how dry the protagonist is as a person, and it shows in his language. And it was actually a very easy read. The writer was not trying to show off any massive literary genius acts in his writing. It was written in a language that we in our everyday life use, so it was a very, very smooth reading. However, I would add something here. This is not the type of book that that is enjoyable to everyone. You really have to have a quirky taste in reading to enjoy this kind of book, where you joke about how your skin is peeling off your body and you have no idea what's happening. The walls of the house sort of looks like your skin being peeled off and you have no answer to it. Whereas the brother of the protagonist is a surgeon, and no matter how much he tried to offer his help to his brother, the brother is just a weird person who has a writer's blog. He also is a writer, by the way. So it makes me think that if the author, Gabriel Smith, is imagining himself in that kind of setting and just writing about him, but whatever it is, it worked and it was super fun to read. And yeah, I love it. I gave it a solid 4.5 star. So here it is, and we will move on to the next book, My Friends by Frederick Bachman. And I'm showing the book here. This has to be my most favorite book out of all the 5 books I am discussing in this video, and I cannot contain my excitement how much I loved it and how much I'm excited to talk about it. So I hear that Frederick Bachman writes more in English, and he wrote this book after taking a long break from writing. And nobody's complaining. It's just amazing. The book goes back and forth between a 25 years timeline. What I mean is that there are 2 different stories that are connected together or organized together, and they have a 25 years in between. In my eyes, the central characters were Louisa and Ted because they were the highlight of the book. So Louisa is a 18 years old girl who is homeless and is in love with a certain painting. So what happens to her is that the painter himself gives her the painting before dying. So she basically inherits her dream painting. And Ted happens to be the best friend of the painter. So he was tasked to deliver the painting to Louisa. And Louisa, being Louisa, she has no idea what to do with the painting because she's homeless. She has no place to keep the painting, or she does not have the connection to sell the painting to. So she forcefully tagged along with Ted, who was totally unwilling to travel with her. But, well, that's how you will see they build up this kinship and a sense of belonging while they travel together to find a potential buyer for the painting. And the process of developing that kind of friendship, that kind of belongingness, was the highlight of the book. And I'm pretty sure you will enjoy it. And Ted, as they travel by train, explains to Louisa the story 25 years back with him, the painter, Ellie, and Jor, these 4 friends. And you will be emotional while reading their story the entire time. Like you will have your heart in your hand while reading their story. This 4 people who are like best friends to each other and how they deal with childhood trauma, abuse, and not knowing what to do in life. But they figure it out. As a person who barely understands what friendship is, this book brought me to tears. It is so full of beauty of being clueless teenagers, at the same time hoping the best for their friends, is something that really stood out to me. And it is so raw and unfiltered that it touches you in a different way. And this story, crafted by Frederick Bachman, is so beautiful in its own way. It is such a simple book, it is an easy read, but at the same time, it talks about basic human emotions, how we lose our dear ones and we cope with that grief, and how we heal from that grief together in a community among our friends and family is something that will really get you. It's beautifully written. I would say that again and again. And you have to read this book if you want to understand the lives of Ali, Jor, the painter, Ted, Louisa. And you will find it very easy to build this connection with the characters. And it takes no effort. It is effortless. You will feel for each and every one of these characters that are presented in this book. So it is a mastercraft. Here I said it. It is a mastercraft. This book also highlights how we find family among strangers. And this idea of found family among Ali, Jor, the painter, and Ted is something so rare, at the same time, something we all want to have in our life. So it is a very beautiful craft. And one thing I would also say that the writing feels very personal. It does not feel like a forced writing. It does not feel very fictionish, even though it is a fiction. And I don't know what the writer has to say about it, but it did feel very, very, very personal. And this book has all the elements that contributes to making a tear-jerking, heart-melting, and personal book. And it will make you look at art from a very different angle. It criticizes how the modern society looks at an art and the flaws in the process of looking. And it really stood out to me how this book is a modern coming of age book. At the same time, it stands as the critique of how we understand and how we view arts nowadays. And there is so much to learn from his writing that I'm just speechless. This is a solid 5-star, and this is a book I think everybody should read. Reading The Vegetarian was a highlight for me. It is written by Han Kang, and this is the first book I have ever read from her. So I'm so happy that I got introduced to South Korean literature through this book. And I wonder how many books can actually compete with this one, because it is something that will stand out in the test of time. So Young Hae is the central character, and the book is divided into 3 sections. The first part is from her husband, the second part is from her brother-in-law, and the last part is from her sister's perspective. And of course, you have to forgive me if I'm mispronouncing the names. I hope I'm getting it right. What is this book actually about? Let me walk you through that. So the story kickstarts when Young Hae, the central character, goes vegetarian. She stops consuming meat, and it takes a very different turn in her life. And in the first part, her husband walks us through her journey of being a vegetarian and going through mental and physical abuse because of being a vegetarian. Yeah, I'm sorry, I'm just losing my words because I'm actually thinking about all the pictures I have had while reading this book, the pictures of abuse and mental trauma just because you stopped consuming meat. And it happened to her in a way that we are very familiar with. And when I say we, people who are from Asian background, getting beaten up or facing different kinds of physical and mental torture is actually not something very uncommon. But how Han Kang represents those scenarios is what that stood out to me. In the second phase, her brother in law takes us through his journey of objectifying her. I would say he was objectifying her. He was obsessed with her sexually and from an artistic point of view. And it gives us such a bright example of how women are objectified, first of all, and how they slowly crumble under that lens, how the mental and physical deterioration takes place. And yeah, the second part was equally disturbing as the first part. Then comes the third part where her sister explains us how she viewed the last segment of Young Hae's life. She walks us through her journey of being hospitalized, really losing her mind and slowly just crumbling in front of her. And she could not help but gets devastated seeing her sister disappearing just in thin air. And she could not do anything about it but just to watch. So when you finish reading this book, you will clearly understand why all the three different perspectives was so essential to portray issues like desire and shame, how mental and physical deterioration takes place when you are so heavily affected by the environment you are living in. It also gives you this broader picture of a life of an Asian female who tries to rebel against the societal norms and power. This is not a crowd pleasing book. This book has not been written for us to enjoy. This is a very heavy book. This is the type of book that is full of truth that we need to deal with, that should reach us. So you will see multiple reviews where people have failed to enjoy this book and they failed to capture the essence and they just gave it a bad rating. And I feel very, very sad when I see those because this book is an experience. It is not actually a fiction, but I would rather call it an experience that takes us on a journey to understand how even in modern world women go through mental and physical abuse in so many different forms. That's why I call it an experience rather than a fiction or just a story. This book was not written to be enjoyed. This book was written so that we understand the real nature of our society. And thousands of young Haes are crumbling every day all around us. And we either understand it or we become very numb about it. We don't react to it anymore or we don't see it anymore as a problem. So it brings out a lot of things that have been problematized before, but we became numb because of the overflow of social media content that we see every day, we consume every day. But a problem is still a problem. That's what this book is talking about. And it is so haunting that you take a couple of moments to recover from what you just read in the book. Those moments will come to you while you are reading it. Again, I will tell you, this book is not meant for your enjoyment or entertainment. This is just a bundle of truth that Han Kang has given us. So I will keep emphasizing how this book is not everybody's cup of tea, because not everybody enjoys this kinds of book, this kinds of gory detail where it's so raw to the point that you just wish the author used some kind of filter to make it more digestible. And by the end of this book, I was left mesmerized. I was horrified. I was numb. And I was just thinking that there are so many people who face different types of mental stress and trauma in so many different ways, and it has been normalized because we hear about it either a lot or we just don't acknowledge it as a problem. And well, I'm sort of excited. Then I slowly burned out while explaining this book to you. You can see my expression that I'm just losing my words. I gave it a solid 5 star because I think this is the type of disturbing book that you should read sometimes. Combining 3 different perspectives where we have 2 male and 1 female perspective was such a splendid idea by the writer. And I will tell you why. It helped the writer to blur the line between right or wrong and give the readers a space where the readers can think from a neutral standpoint, where you understand the whole situation from both sides. And that's exactly what made this story so vividly rich and lifelike. Like you could literally see how everything is going because how she chose to explain the story. So that's one of the writer's technique that I really, really, really admired. The final book that I'm going to talk about is The Anxious Generation: How the Great Rewiring of Childhood Caused an Epidemic of Mental Illness by Jonathan Haidt. So this is one of the best nonfiction books I have read this year. And the writing is just crisp and clean, easy read. I'm pretty sure it's an academic book. It should be, but it was just very fast read for me. And it already talks about something I'm very deeply interested in. And the well articulated writing and presenting facts was the highlight of this book. So, in this book, Jonathan Haidt unapologetically criticizes phone based childhood. So, he's not calling the technology bad, but he is criticizing how technology is being used to raise children. And it was very, very enchanting to read how the great rewiring is affecting both children and the parents equally. It gives a precise explanation of how and why we need to think more carefully about how our children are being affected by social deprivation, sleep deprivation. I personally find this book to be very universal, even though majority of the data used in this book are very much based in US. But I mean, that's fine. It gives us a perspective to think and reflect on. But sitting in a Scandinavian country, I can see how parents here are doing so many things right already. But of course, it does not take away the fact that this book should be read by everyone so that we understand the current situation, people who are getting it wrong and people who are in an attempt to get it right. And the final message to me was that over coddling your children will, in the end, develop a generation who are just absolutely fragile. So, over coddling is not the answer. The answer is to let them face every small struggle all by themselves and just be in the background to help when you are 100% sure they have no idea how to get themselves out of the situation. So that was the message that I got from this book, and I give it a 4.5 out of 5. And yeah, here we go. So thank you so much for being with me, and I will see you in the next video. Bye. So